We know that everybody on the planet, there is this pure desire among all humans at some point in their life to make a positive difference. That's what we all want to do. We want to make a difference. We want to make our mark. If you use what you do best to do something you enjoy, to produce results that matter to you, you are going to be very fulfilled and you are going to be successful. There's just no way around that. Now, this is radical. This is so simple, yet it's going to sound radical. Companies need to begin to see that the positions that they have as opportunities to put a person who was wired to do that work in there. And as a partnership, the company and the worker make a positive contribution.
Welcome to the Work for Humans podcast. This is Dart Lindsley. Ken Coleman has interviewed thousands of people on the topic of work on his nationally syndicated call-in radio show that's focused on career and personal development. He finds that his callers share a common struggle: confidence. People are not happy with where they are, but they're not sure how to move on, or even where they want to go. Known as America's career coach, Ken is a broadcaster, interviewer, and best-selling author known for his expertise in career and personal development. He's the co-host of The Ramsey Show and the executive host of The Ken Coleman Show. Ken empowers others to advance their professional lives and grow their influence in the workplace. His insights draw from personal experiences and thousands of interviews, serving as the foundation for his best-selling books, From Paycheck to Purpose, The Proximity Principle, and Find the Work You're Wired to Do. In this episode, Ken and I talk about the 3 essential employee needs that companies must address to succeed, the key qualities of an impactful mentor, and what we know about how humans are wired for work. We also discuss 3 introspective questions to uncover work motivations, career trends from Ken's decade-long research sample, and practical steps to create the career opportunities that you want, as well as other topics. As always, if you enjoy today's episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on future episodes. And now, I'm excited to bring you my conversation with Ken Coleman. Ken Coleman, welcome to Work for Humans.
Oh, it's good to be here, Dart. And I got to tell you, I was telling the team earlier when I found out I was going to be with you how much I wish my name was Dart. If my name was Dart, I think I would be a much, much bigger deal. I really do.
Hey, Google's way better.
It's so good.
I will tell you, there is a Ken Coleman, as you know, who was a sportscaster.
Yeah, longtime voice of the Red Sox.
If you'd become a sportscaster, which was one of your career possibilities,
right,
that would have made you incredibly difficult to Google.
I know. Well, for years, my photo would show up with his bio. So people would search me and they would get his bio and they would go, hey, this is really weird. Apparently you're dead, but you're not.
Well, as we talked about a little bit before the show, this show, we focus a lot on the design of work. And in fact, I'm not sure I've ever said on the show what my mission is. And since a lot of what you've written about is how to define what you really want, what your purpose is, I'm going to say what mine is, which is I want every company in the world to be an engine for creating the kind of work that makes people feel whole and alive. And I don't think we're there today at all. And you have a huge body of expertise on both sides of that, which is there's the part about career. Many of your books are about career. Your show is about career. It's been going for how long?
We are in our 8th year.
8th year. You've talked to 10,000 people about career and given advice on that. And that's given you the kind of expertise that makes it possible for us to also ask the question, how do companies need to rise up and meet what people really want? So I want to talk about all those things.
Yeah. Well, I love how you teed that up. Let's talk about the gold standard on what people want, what they need. Gallup has been around for a very long time. I think we all know their brand credibility, and they did the largest study that has ever been done on employee engagement. And through the findings of that study, they identified 3 human needs that everybody needs met in the workplace. So this really specifically answers your question. And the 3 human needs are purpose and meaning in their work. They need to see a personal why attached to their role. They need to feel a sense of meaning. And then the second need is very specific recognition for their unique contribution. So they need to be recognized specifically for how they are contributing in a positive way. And this is just back to the old psychology 101 stuff where we want to be seen and we want to feel a sense of value. And then third, people want a relationship with their leader, a real relationship, not this transactional boss worker. In other words, you tell me what I have to do. I try to do it to your satisfaction. And in return, I get a paycheck. If you think about how crass that sounds, that description there is very transactional and completely devoid of real relationship. Well, what they want is this mentor coach. If you dive into the data, they want that mentor coach relationship. I know that you want me to win. I know that you're invested in helping me win. That's that relationship. So you value me just as a coach values a player. You're invested in me and you're going to help me win and we win. And so that's that relationship, coach mentor. So quick review, the 3 human needs that companies must be aware of and must meet if they want to have higher engagement, longer retention, greater productivity, and greater profitability. You must meet those human needs every day in the office, or if it's remote, does not matter. Those needs must be met. They need to experience meaning and purpose in their role. They need to be recognized for their unique contribution, and they want that coach, mentor type relationship with their leader.
I'm really going to want to get into that relationship piece. And it's because one of the very first people I interviewed, Alder Yarrow, we were talking about the design of work. And he was saying, you could design it a lot like you design a toaster. And I said, I don't know, a toaster's never put me in therapy. And he said, well, yeah, because it is a relationship. It's a relationship that you're in. And that's a pretty challenging design problem, how to design relationship. And I like what you've detailed out, which is it's a mentor coach, somebody who's invested in you, somebody who sees you, I'm going to add, somebody who really sees you for who you are and is ready to grow you. Have you had that kind of person in your life? And what were the attributes of that person that made them great at that?
I'm thinking about one of my leaders, a guy by the name of Don, who really did become a mentor to me. He evolved from this guy that was higher up the ladder, so he was not my direct report, but he was one level above me, and I was a young executive at the time, and he had the attributes of very, very present when he was with me. That was one thing. I always felt like he was excited to be with me. That was really apparent to me early on. I'd never experienced anybody like him. He was by nature a very charismatic guy. He just had charisma, and he used that charisma to make me feel valuable. Always had a word to make me feel like I was something special. And the way he did it, by the way, was genius, because it wasn't that he just made me feel good about myself, but he also had a way of making me feel like there was so much more that I could do. It was a really interesting 1-2 punch. So I would always come away from time with Don feeling good about myself now, but always feeling like I had so much more that I could achieve, and he believed that. That's a really interesting combo. I would always feel like I came away from time with him wanting to do more and believing that I could do more. I was hungrier. I was more enthusiastic. That's a really rare quality. And whenever I felt like I had a challenge, he opened the door for me. He created that open door. You can reach out to me. And when I did, he made time for me and really invested in me. He just had an unbelievable way of lifting my spirit when I was around him. And I think that was a beautiful, beautiful example of what we're talking about.
One of the things you wrote in the proximity principle was that a great mentor cares for you, and cares for you includes telling you what you need to hear. And I love that balance that you just described, which is, on the one hand, I care about you, I believe in you. Because I believe in you, I'm going to tell you some truths about how you can become what I believe you can be.
Yeah, I agree. If somebody doesn't value you or care about you, they're not going to give you any investment. It's just everything is surface. So if somebody's willing to step in and spend time in their mental calories, whether it be a difficult conversation or just an intentional conversation, doesn't always have to be difficult. That's how you know that they think it's worth investing in you, because they're giving their most valuable thing to you, their attention.
I want to talk about your most recent book. The big title on the front, if somebody's looking for this on a shelf, the big title is Find the Work You're Wired to Do. It's not a subtitle, it's the beginning of it if you're looking for it on something like Amazon, which is the Get Clear Career Assessment, and then Find the Work You're Wired to Do. Now, this book is all about getting clarity on what your purpose is and what your passion is. It's actually in one of your previous books, From Paycheck to Purpose, that was 2 chapters. What was it where you came away after writing that book and you said, those 2 chapters, they're not enough?
Well, one, we created this tool after we wrote From Paycheck to Purpose, or I should say, I was creating it. And when Paycheck to Purpose came out, we soft launched the first version of the Get Clear assessment. And you get this tool out into the wild, and hundreds of thousands of people have used it. And so you then have people calling into your show and they're saying, hey, Ken, here are my Get Clear results. I want to walk through this. I'm still a little confused, or I've got 2 or 3 options. I need your help in selecting. And so the real-time laboratory results of working through that with people, I felt like there needed to be a shorter, smaller, very digestible book that replaced me on the phone with people, because I can only coach so many people on the show. And I'm blessed. Anybody that's creating content, I think, would really just about die for the opportunity to get it tested real time every day, because you just get real feedback and you go, is this hitting? And what I found is that even though I believe, and everybody that has taken it has said it nails me, the assessment, because it just allows you to answer questions honestly, and we give you your answers back to you. It's nothing magical. But that initial clarity for some people needs a little bit more coaching. And so we wrote this Find the Work You're Wired to Do to pick people up at the results. Whereas Paycheck to Purpose was more of a, here's what the path to working on purpose looks like, the whole enchilada, from the starting line to the top of the mountain. And that's what that book was. This book is, okay, you know what you do best, that's talent. You know the work that you enjoy doing most, that's passion. And you now know the results that motivate you, that get you up out of bed with the juice. And that's mission. And so now that we've got that purpose statement, we've got that clarity, but some people need a little bit more hand-holding. They need that guide, if you will, to go, okay, listen, I'm going to take you on the guided tour. And some people need the guided tour. And so we wrote this specific book to help them through ideation. In other words, when I say ideation, professional paths that could very well be work they're wired to do. And then selection. And so this book is really about ideation and selection.
I think there's an assumption in a lot of the business community that people hate work. And so I need to design my company in such a way to get people to do something that they hate. And so a lot of that has to do with surveillance. It has to do with a lot of things. You challenge that assumption. What do we know about how people are wired for work?
We know that everybody on the planet, at some point, before maybe they get jaded or rejected, but at some point there is a very altruistic, positive view of themselves to say, I think there's something I'm supposed to do with my life. What is that? You don't ever have to teach a human to wonder that. It's intrinsic in who we are. So you start at that point, and I just don't believe that that's debatable. Now, I believe people can become jaded, but there is this pure desire among all humans at some point in their life to make a positive difference. And that's what we all want to do. We want to make a difference. We want to make our mark. So if we start there, we know then that if we can find the seat on the bus, if you will, bus being the world of work, if we can find the seat on the bus for a human where they go, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm meant for this. We have phrases like, you were born for this. You're a natural. We all use that. So to the extent that we hire naturals or hire people that are born for this role or wired for this, this is the secret sauce. You start there. So that would be my entire position, that if you think everybody hates work, what you're really saying is that a lot of people hate what they've done in the world of work to this point. Maybe someone's never truly experienced what it's like to be in a state of true elation as it relates to using what they're really good at that feels effortless to do something that they just really get lost in, and then it produces a result that aligns with their values. This is not a Pollyanna fairy tale. This is sitting there, and it is simply, it's why I teach the methodology that I teach. If you use what you do best to do something you enjoy to produce results that matter to you, you are going to be very fulfilled and you are going to be successful. There's just no way around that. If you use what you do best to do something you enjoy to produce a result that you care about, the music starts to play and everybody looks at you and they go, oh, what a lucky soul. And there's no luck about it. It comes down to awareness. So if I could wave a wand today to help you accomplish your mission, Dart, it would be companies are now going to start to look at their company and the jobs that they have. Now, this is radical. This is so simple, yet it's going to sound radical, okay? Companies need to begin to see that the positions that they have as opportunities to put a person who was wired to do that work in there and give a person great meaning. And as a partnership, the company and the worker make a positive contribution. It's that simple. You got to start looking at it's not just a position I got to fill. No, this is an opportunity. Each job that you put out for hire is an opportunity for someone, watch this, to make the difference they were born to make and make a better life. That is so wild to most people to think of it that way. But that's how we ought to be thinking about it.
And the way things are designed today, I'm going to describe the job based upon what I need from you. I'm going to describe it using skills, and I'm going to try to figure out what ingredients of skills you have. And somebody I was just talking to, actually, they were hiring for a position, and they had 10 fantastic people. Absolutely fantastic. They looked across those 10 people, and they said, that's the one out of the 10 who's going to get the most out of this job. They're the one for whom this job is going to have the greatest value. And they picked that person out of the 10.
Brilliant. Never heard that before. I totally endorse that. That gets at the essence of what we were just talking about. Because see, now, if I've got someone, you look at the way they describe it, they're going to get the most out of this. Then if you start with that supposition, then you could sit back and go, we're going to get the most out of this.
On this show, we've been exploring the principles of multi-sided management, which is the belief that work is a product that every company builds and delivers to employees. This struck a nerve. Work for Humans is in the top 5% of podcasts worldwide. And along the way, people began to approach us, asking us how they could put multi-sided management into practice. And they were from all walks of business, line managers and CEOs, 3-person startups and multinationals and universities. But they all shared in common the belief that management practices of the last century are clearly not working. In response to this demand, I've pulled together a small team of some of the best people I have ever had the privilege to work with during my long career, who are also passionate about multi-sided management, and we formed a company 11-fold to serve the need. If you want your employees to feel more alive at work. You want happier teams, lower turnover, and you want tools that traditional management failed to give you to balance the needs of the company and the needs of your teams. Let's talk. Employees give your company value it cannot survive without. When you fail to design great work, they will unsubscribe, either by leaving or even worse, by losing the ability to care. Join us at 11fold.com, spelled 11FOLD. Let's change management. This is an open question, which is, I believe that if companies start off by saying, how can I get the most out of Ken? I'm going to start with wrong questions.
That's correct.
But if I can start off by saying, how can Ken get the most out of this job? Then the rest follows.
I could not agree more. I could not agree more with what you said, because the heart is good in that first scenario that you threw out. How can I get the most out of Ken? I think the heart's good, but it's the wrong question, as you pointed out beautifully. And so it creates the wrong response. So what happens is heart's in the right place. Motives are in the right place. I think we'll take a positive view of that question. How can I get the most out of Ken? Okay. Even in the most healthy, positive way of asking that question, Dart, what happens is you begin to create tactics that are manipulative. And the science on motivation is clear. You cannot motivate anybody. A leader may think they're motivating somebody, but even in its most positive, healthy application of motivation, it's manipulation. I talk about this all the time on podcasts. When I tell my boys, and I'll pick on my boys because they're boys and I'm a man, so I'll pick on them. I love them. They're amazing boys, but they're boys. And one's a college freshman and one's a junior in high school. So they're sloppy. That's how boys are supposed to be. I don't want to get that out of boys, but boys are sloppy. You go into your son's teenage room and you go to your daughter's teenage room, and I have a teenage daughter, and it's just two different worlds. We know this. Any parent knows this. And any guy who was a guy once knows we are slops. And I'll go in, and I remember when they were younger, and I would, not that much younger, but guys, this room is ridiculous. I feel like I need to put a hazmat suit on to walk in here. And we don't live this way. And so I would say something to the effect of, this room's got to be clean by such and such time, or you're not going out with your friends, or your friends aren't coming over, whatever, right? So I was essentially saying I was manipulating them. I was not motivating them. They cleaned it up, but only because they had to either receive the reward of going out with friends or friends coming over, or to avoid the punishment of not being able to do that. That is manipulation. It's great parenting. It is awful leadership. And so I'm digging into that a little bit to say that when you ask the question, how can I get the most out of Ken? It's not an awful question. It's not an evil question. It's just not the right question. And I love how you flipped it. And so what it requires of the leader then is to go, okay, how is Ken wired? How is Dart wired? And hopefully I've done it on the front end in hiring. That's the key. But to play this out, because I know you have a lot of leaders listening in here, and it's a corporate kind of a focus, all is not lost if you didn't do it in the hiring process, but you got to be mature enough and, quite frankly, smart enough to go, I didn't do this on the front end, I need to do it now, and I might need to find a different seat on the bus for Ken. I hired him into the wrong seat.
Well, and anyway, there's this other thing, which is that you hire somebody once, and they work there for 10, 20 years, potentially. They're not in the same job for 10 or 20 years, and the company's not the same company for 10 or 20 years. And so
that's correct.
There's a constant conversation that needs to happen there, and adaptation.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point here, another great point, and you know the results of the Get Clear assessment, we focus, that last result is what motivates me. What are the results that I want to put in the world? And to your point, people evolve. And so people have asked me before, Ken, can your missional result change? And I said, absolutely it can. Absolutely. What I'm motivated to do in my 20s may be very different than what I'm motivated to do in my 40s.
Now, in the section 1 of the Get Clear assessment, you've got 3 sections: understanding your range of talents, understanding your range of passions, understanding your range of mission. Why range?
Well, it's really important to know that you aren't just this person with one stripe. We all got multiple stripes, if you will. So what we're trying to do is in the methodology of the assessment, as you know, we've based it on 12 universal talents, 15 universal passions, like type of work, and 6 motivational drivers. That's based on the psychology and the study of motivation. So we score you on everything. So you get a report back, as you know, and you get your top 3 talents, and we do a deep dive on those. But we also show you of the 12 universal talents. So we're taking all the world of skill and putting them into these 12 buckets of talent. And so we're showing you your range. We show you this is where you are really, really gifted, and this is where you are not very gifted. And I think that information is important when we design the tool. I said, I want them to see it all because I think that self-awareness is a superpower. And so if we can see where we're really, really talented, and that validates us and that clarifies some things for us, but we need to see where we're not very talented at all. And that also clarifies some things for us. And I think it frees us. So being aware of what you're good at doing validates us and propels us. Being aware of what you're not very good at doing, that frees us to go, I shouldn't be spending hardly any time and effort on these areas. I should be hiring and delegating in those areas. I should be removing that stuff. If it's in my personal life, I should be automating for it or whatever. And so this idea that we need to be working on our weaknesses all the time is foolish. I don't think that we need to be working on our weaknesses. And I'm not talking about relationally. I'm talking about professionally. When it comes to professional weaknesses, we ought to be super aware of it and remove ourselves from it because we are dragging the team down. And leaders who are doing things that they're not very good at, this is tragic because they're the last ones to know. Everybody else that's following them already knows they're no good at it. When it comes to professional, when we're talking about skill is what we're talking about. I think in an area of relationship where we're weak, we should be, because there's pain there, we need to be on that. But I'm talking professional application only. So that's why we talk about the range. Good, average, bad. You need to be aware of yourself. And so that's why we talk about the range and understanding the range. So for instance, to cover that middle ground, where I'm average or slightly above average, I'd put some time into that because I can go from average to good, and that good will support where my areas of greatness are. But we're not going to spend an inordinate amount of time there. Where we really want to focus is the area where we are really gifted, and we take that talent and we hone it into a super skill. That's where we're most effective, and that's where our greatest opportunity for growth is.
One of the books that changed my career was a book put out by Gallup, actually, StrengthsFinder. One of the things it says is, look, an investment in a weakness, you're going to face resistance if you invest in your weaknesses because it's hard to change them. But if you invest in your strengths, the return is enormous. And I will tell you that the thing about that book that really changed my world was that I was in corporations. I started in corporations in my 30s. I hadn't been in a company before that. And I was passing as a corporate person, as a square peg for a square hole. And what I realized along the way is that companies don't want you to be average. They want you to specialize. And what specialization means is be your weird self. And that's what the StrengthsFinder basically says is, look, you're weird. Be your weird self as much as you can be, and you will find a place.
Yeah, I've said this a million times. Uniqueness is the key to greatness. In other words, if you discover your uniqueness and lean into it, then you have the opportunity for greatness. But so many people are trying to be great and do great things. And I think you need to be unique and do unique things. Greatness lies within your uniqueness is the point.
That's a huge finding for me, what you just said. That is a huge deal. I've done this podcast for 120 episodes. I know moments when I'm like, oh, that changes the direction of my thinking. What you just said changed the direction of my thinking. And in part because just to manage scale, companies are really trying hard to make people look uniform, which is we're going to put you in a job title, we're going to put you in a box, we're going to ask you to look more like what's in that box. And that is not human because humans don't fit in boxes very well. But also it misses this huge opportunity. which is that if I'm going to design the kind of work that is going to create the most value for you, I'm going to design it with your unique capabilities in mind. So I think that's beautiful.
Thank you. I absolutely believe it to my core. And by the way, this has a big social component to it as well. It needs to come from two places, our homes and our classrooms. And I think that that statement would heal a lot of our societal ills, anxiety, depression. I think it's the elixir to healing there. And it's got to start in our homes. Parents begin to feel a massive cultural pressure for their kid to pick a good college in a good major so they can get a good job. School systems are putting this enormous pressure on kids in middle school and high school, and their freaking brains aren't even close to developed. And we're putting this massive pressure on them. And then there's social media, which plays to our most vulnerable area of our heart, and that is, do I matter? Do I matter as much as this person because they got more likes and all this kind of stuff? So you take all this, and I know I'm talking about something really big, but I'm going to try to simplify it. So you take those cultural pressures, parents, school, and social media, and you put it in a giant cocktail mixer, and that's what young people are drinking every day. And it creates this unbelievable, soul-crushing pressure and questions. And then you got depression and anxiety spinning out of control. And I think that the fix to this is what we're talking about, for parents to push against the matrix, to unplug from the matrix and go, my kid and my kids came out of the womb hardwired with some natural talent. And because of the talent, there will be natural areas of interest because we humans like to do things we're good at. So we're already predisposed to enjoying certain types of things because of the talent that we come into the world with. And parents know this. They could have 3 kids and all 3 kids be so vastly different. And then through the kids' experience of life in your home, in your environment, the wins, the losses throughout school and extracurricular and sports and all the things, they begin to get shaped. And yet we don't in the home, we don't in the classroom drive this message home that you and I were just talking about, that your greatness lies within your uniqueness. The kid's not thinking about being great in the middle school, but if we could begin for the kid to go, my mark on this world, my contribution to this world, I don't know it yet, and I don't have to know it yet. But the thing that I need to know is me. I need to know me better than any topic that I've ever studied in my life. And I need to keep diving into me. And the more I embrace me, and this isn't kumbaya, self-love, Stuart Smalley character from Saturday Night Live, I'm special. It's not that. It is, who am I? How am I wired? What makes my heart angry? What makes my heart hurt? What makes my heart sore or happy? These kinds of things. And then give these kids real easy questions to begin to wrestle with. Go, look, you'll figure out what you want to do at some point. But wrestle with these 3 questions starting now. And for the rest of your life, answer these questions on a regular basis. Who are the people I want to help? What is the problem or desire that those people have? And what are the solutions to that problem or desire that excite me? So one kid may go, I want to help women. Some young girl goes, I want to help women. Okay. What problem or desire do those women have that you just pictured in your mind? Well, they want to feel beautiful. Oh, okay. What solutions to that desire for women to feel beautiful are you excited about? I really love hair and makeup. Bing! It's that simple. And I could replay that series of questions 1,000 times on this podcast, and I won't. But if we as parents and educators focused on what I just said there, and we begin to institutionalize this idea of, we're not going to stick you in this boilerplate and go, everybody's got to do math, and everybody's got to do science, and everybody's got to do grammar, and everybody's got to do all that. No, we're going to help you figure out what you're really good at naturally. And because of that, the things that interest you and the results that you would like to put out into the world. And you say, at the end of the day, I did this. I designed a website, or I made a woman feel beautiful when we did her hair, or I helped a person recover from surgery, or I sat across from a person who had abuse and we saw a breakthrough today, or I created a business today. On the other side of that is when we're not doing that, now we have people that have come through a system who've been turned into question answerers, not pathfinders. The American education system is creating test takers, not pathfinders. So now corporate America is stuck dealing with this because they got a bunch of people coming in that, their whole life, it's just been about, well, I got to get the right amount of answers right and focus on all the things I did wrong on that test and try to correct that. It's all backwards. So the company that understands that and understands that that's what they're hiring has a chance to re-engineer and could be the greatest company in the world if they understood what they were dealing with and then go, well, can we re-engineer that?
You're not off track at all. And in fact, I want to repeat the phrases that you said. Who do I want to help? What problems do they have? And what solutions might I be uniquely qualified to provide to them?
Yes.
How can I bring my uniqueness to the solution for that problem, for that group that I want to help?
100%.
Now, you have this data sample of talking to thousands and thousands of people about career. Spans almost a decade. Has it changed? Is the world any different? Do you see a trend? Now, it's tricky because some of that trend might be your trend of discovery, right? Which is, it was always there, you just didn't know it. But what's the zeitgeist? What's going on? And do you feel like it's changing?
Yes. I think the zeitgeist in this situation is the pandemic. And I think there were two specific inflection points. At the beginning of the pandemic, for sure, and depending on who you are and where you lived, the stark fear of death makes everybody calibrate, or recalibrate rather. So depending on how you viewed it, but I mean, if you remember when this thing came, it was like, this really scary thing's coming from China. We didn't know what was going on. Let's be honest, most of our government officials didn't know what was going on. And in those early days, to remind everybody, we were turning on the news and there were death toll boards. I don't care what your political persuasion is. I don't care what you thought about it or not. Everybody at some point, and some for an extended amount of time, some for early, and then they kind of like, I'm trying to cover everybody here. Okay. There was a point where everybody has to be honest to go, is this the thing that wipes us all out, or a lot of us? And it was scary, okay, because it was unknown. Now, over time, again, everybody adapts. But I think that was an inflection point. It was like, whoa. None of us alive had experienced anything like that. And that made us all go, life is short, right? We were confronted with our mortality. Inflection point one.
Can I just say, having a call-in show at that time must have been just a little intense.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, we didn't know.
You didn't know, but also you're in a place to help people with very little knowledge, right? Because you don't have a lot of knowledge. It had to be intense.
Yeah, it was. Every day you felt like, okay, I hope I'm giving good advice in the midst of what is a complete crapshoot. Because people are getting laid off like crazy. So that leads to inflection point two. The second inflection point was the world of work completely, it was like stopping a train, the emergency button. So many people went home. It was this new frontier. What does work look like? People were being laid off by the tens of thousands. I mean, it was nutty. And then you went into this new way of work with so many people being remote. So I think those two things happened in the middle of all this for me. And I think that's what has changed people's view of work. And I'll try to simplify it to say that prior to the pandemic, and this attitude still is prevalent, it's the dominant worldview of work. I work to live. Got to do this. Got to go work for the man. Just trying to stay employed. Trying to get ahead of my 401k. Trying to pay off debt. Trying to get my kids through college. Whatever. Work was just, look, this is how we do work. And I got to play within the rules. This is the matrix, and I can't unplug. I think the everybody go work from home changed the physical context of work, the process of work for millions and millions of people. And you then put on top of that mortality. And then people sort of sat back and we saw how things shook out. We were like, man, a lot of people started businesses. A lot of people pivoted and did some interesting things and they did okay. And some people thrived in the pandemic. I think people started looking at that and they were going, everything from, hey, I shouldn't have to come back into work because we proved it. We did a really unintentional case study and y'all can shove it. I don't think I should come back in, right? We saw that as an extreme. So yeah, what has changed is people said, I really like the lifestyle of get my job done, but walk the dog at 3:00 in the afternoon. I think we got to be honest about that. I think people were like, I kind of like working from home. I like this idea of, hey, I got my job and I got my job done today. I did a good job. I did it in a very different way, but I got it done. And here's what's wild. I went to lunch with my wife, or I really like taking my kid to school and picking them up. And then we were also like, well, what do I really want to do with my life? If everything I know got disrupted and I managed to survive, then what changes can I make? Because change was forced on all of us. So the whole point I'm making with those two inflection points were that most people hate change because change represents the unknown. But all of a sudden, change happened and nobody had a choice in it. And it was just like, boom, here's change. Deal with it. I think a lot of people realize, oh, we adapted to this. And if this was forced on me and I adapted, then what changes should I make in my own life? And I think the young generation Z, they watch that, they've seen all this, and they're coming in going, I want to choose to work how I want to work and when I want to work. And so they are changing the way we see work too. So there's a long answer, but that's what's changed.
And a part of what you're saying is that it's durable. It was not something that came and is gone now. And it's that, nope, people saw something different. And I mean, a part of it is just doubting the status quo, skepticism, loss of belief in the traditional way of doing things. And when your belief is shaken, it's hard to get it back. And so I think that's right. I want to talk about the proximity principle. It's related to that in a way, because the proximity principle, the book, if I was going to summarize what it is it's how to get yourself in the way of good work. It's how to put yourself in the path of good work by getting close to the parts of the world that contain it. And so it's the people, it's the places, it's the practices. And what struck me about it is how not fast it is. It's not like hunting, it's like farming. It's not, I go out, catch a deer, bring it back, we eat it. It's not like that. It's like, no, I'm growing an orchard. I'm going to plant seeds and I'm going to plant them in places where I think trees will grow. And it's like that. And I find that very encouraging, because the thing about the hunting model, which I'm going to go out and catch it, bring it back, is you fail and you feel like a failure. Whereas this is something where get close to the right places, start absorbing knowledge, meeting people. I find it very human and consoling in a way.
I actually like the planting analogy because if you do it right, then the seeds grow. And I really like actually the way you've come at this, because I think that in this book, I use the phrase, stop networking and start connecting. And I think networking is the hunting metaphor, right? And gosh, if you've ever been to a networking event, you feel like some people are hunting. You feel like they came up here and they're trying to decide whether or not they're going to bag me or not, right? Are they taking, like, can I help them? And if I can't help them, they move on. And you feel hunted and it's gross. And everybody that is in that networking environment, it's like trying to figure out, what can you do for me? Whereas connecting is about growing. Connecting is the art of, I want to learn more about this person. I want to learn more about how they've gotten successful. I want to learn more about what they're doing to grow. And you walk in as a sponge. And every time you make a good connection, you show up around the right people. You spend time with the right people, and the posture is learning. And when you show up in the right places, you're going to meet more of the right people. And this thing repeats itself. And so then when I'm in the right places, I meet the right people. I'll give you a real example. When my schedule allows, and it's hit and miss based on my schedule, but late Friday afternoons, I am in a group of guys, very successful guys, and we get together at a local cigar shop. And it's a standing invite. It's late Friday afternoons. And some days there's 2 people there. Some days there's 20 dudes there. And that is an example of a right place for me. And again, if you don't like cigars, don't miss the analogy here, because this could be coffee, this could be whatever, this could be lunch. I'm around those people, and the very nature of smoking a cigar is not a quick thing. You're sitting, you are slowing down, and that makes for incredible conversation. And sometimes I walk out of those things and I just feel lifted because we laughed and somebody told a couple hilarious jokes, and I can't wait to tell somebody else. It's simple as that. And sometimes I learned about a new book. I met somebody new. Almost always I'm meeting somebody new, and I'm learning about them. And they're telling me about what's going on in their life and business. And I am growing even when I cannot see it. That's an act of fertilization, of watering, of just sitting in the dirt. Sometimes a plant needs to just sit underneath the ground for a while. I could go on and on with this metaphor. I really love it, is my point. And so the proximity principle is how to make things happen for yourself. But I do love the planting analogy, because it's not go have one connection and expect something to happen for you. It is, in fact, planting the seed, making sure you're pulling the weeds, fertilizing, watering, all of that. And it takes time. And I have found that some of the biggest breakthroughs in my life happened a good bit of time after I made that initial connection. A connection would come through for me, and it was not something that I was pushing. It had been established or planted a long time ago. So I love that analogy, and that's what the book is. The proximity principle says in order to do what you want to do, you can fill in the blank. Got to be around people that are doing it and in places where it is happening. It's a simplified idea that the right people plus the right places will bring me opportunity. And so that's what I mean by making things happen in your life. You are intentional to always be connecting, which means I'm learning. And by doing that, opportunities come to us. There is no kicking the door down.
This is like another place where I can see companies could design it in to work. I work for a company. It has 150,000 people in it. We should be building a place that's the equivalent of the barbershop to go smoke cigars. We should be building that, and we should be making groups of people who are on a similar path and making the time for them to do that. I'll tell you that one of the things about the proximity principle, I think it's a hazard of all such things, which is in the proximity principle, you talk about the times when some of the principles there led to your success. The story that you don't tell is all the seeds that didn't grow, because we tell a narrative of our past, and the narrative of our past is what happened, not what didn't happen. But I mean, I assume that you were very directed, I have to say, and you came in with a talent. One of the things that you mentioned in one of the books, I can't remember which one anymore, is that everybody thought you were going to be a politician when you were growing up. That doesn't happen to everybody. Not everybody is the kind of person who everybody thinks, oh, that person's going to be a politician. But anyway, I was going to say, there must have been a lot of misses in there.
I can't tell you how many times I was ignored, literally ignored. Like, couldn't even get a response back from a radio station or a TV. And the most famous one is, I wrote about it in 2 books, but this program director in Atlanta, it's well known to this day, and he's still there. Same position, by the way. I had volunteered because I was running a small business and I had some flexibility, and I volunteered and started going down there and answering screening calls for one of the mid-afternoon shows and doing research. And then these guys realized that I was a communicator, and they were like, well, man, if you want to get on the air, we'll hook you up. Go to Falcons training camp or go up to the SEC men's basketball tournament in Nashville and call in on your cell phone and give us updates. We'll put you on the air. And I was like, are you kidding me? this is great. You guys are awesome. Really, really good dudes. Still friends with these guys. And so I got called into this dude's office one day, the program director of the radio station. He goes, hey, I've heard you've been on the air and you can't do that anymore. And I was, oh okay. I didn't know where he was going with it. And long story short, he's like, it's against company policy. I was like, well, wasn't it good? He goes, yeah, it was fine. He goes, but you can't do that. You can't do that. He was just playing the company role on me. I don't think he meant anything, but he crushed me because he said to me in that little 3-minute meeting, that's all it was. He's like, look, man, you can keep coming in. You're doing a good job. You're helping us. You've had a great attitude. He goes, but we're not going to hire you. And you don't have the talent to make it in a top 8 market like Atlanta was at the time. And just crushed me. Crushed me. I believed him for a while. And then I got over it to some degree. Still a chip right there. Sitting right there. Because it fueled me. After it devastated me, it then became fuel for me. And there's a very unhealthy part of me that would love to call him up today and go, hey, later this afternoon, I'm going to be co-hosting the second largest radio show in the world. But that's unhealthy.
You know what?
So yeah, I got a lot of rejection stories.
Is it unhealthy? I don't think it's unhealthy.
No, I do. I think it is. I think it is because I got what I needed from that deal. But I'm being honest. I'm just being honest. I share that because I want people to know that I harbor those feelings.
I was circulating a book proposal, and I met the kind of person which I call a useful asshole. And they're useful because they tell it to you straight. They might be wrong, but they're not going to pull you punches. And he says, nobody's going to look at your book. He said, get famous first, then come back and talk. And you know what? I decided he was right. I didn't like to hear it, but I would like to definitely come back at some point and be able to say what you're talking about, which is, look at this. I have a few questions that I ask at the end of every show. And because we see work as a design problem, I ask questions from the design toolkit. And one of them is, what job do you, Ken, hire your job to do for you?
The answer is confidence. That answer has evolved into that. I wouldn't have said that 5 years ago, but the answer is, if Nike sells inspiration and Amazon sells convenience, I believe that I'm in the confidence business. Because I had a guy, you probably know Greg McCune, wrote the book Essentialism, and he had me on his podcast a couple years ago, and he asked me a question that I was unable to answer effectively. And I told him that after we were done, and it's led to this answer. He was like, what's the one thing, the thing that all your callers are truly asking for? And anybody that I've coached, live events, at leadership events, on my actual show, and I have now been able to get to the answer, and it's confidence.
Let me part that out because I think that's beautiful. In one of your books, you wrote that you made a pivot. You recognized that you wanted people to achieve their greatest potential and create the most value in the world. And so, who do you want to help? You want to help people who can create value in the world. What problem do they have? Especially that you are uniquely qualified to deliver against? The problem they have is lack of confidence. And the solution that you have is you're uniquely qualified to be able to help them to have that confidence.
That's it. Because I could extrapolate that forever about what that looks like, but that's the core. Confident to be who they're supposed to be. Confident to do what they're supposed to do.
Can you detect the result? Do you get a sufficient feedback where you can tell that it's working?
Sure. Depends on the context. On the air, these micro coaching is what I would call it. These micro coaching moments. And the way you hear it is in their emotion. You can hear the aha. You can hear the light finally go on. The doubt and the fear go away. Because that's who I'm fighting. Fear, doubt, and pride. Doubt is, I don't believe something good will happen if I move forward. Fear is, I'm worried that something bad is going to happen if I move forward. And pride is, I'm so worried about what everybody else is going to think or say that I don't pay attention to what I believe. Those are your three big voices that I call the enemies of progress. I need to actually reframe that. I'm going to call those confidence killers from this day forward. And so in these micro coaching moments, you can sense somebody's physiology change. I might not be able to see them. I can hear it on them. And then many times they'll just say something like, aha, and then they'll spit out what they've been thinking. My job as a coach is to get someone to the point where I really believe that anybody that calls in for coaching really does know what they're looking for. They just need me to validate it. And that's where I've arrived at confidence. So yeah, I can see it.
What does your job cost you?
Preparation. It costs me to be healthier than most. The standard's higher because I take on the weight of people are asking me for advice and I have to be the genuine article. So there's a certain amount of healthiness and wholeness that has to go into this. In other words, you can't give what you don't have.
It's an interesting in the category of cost.
So in the traditional sense of the word cost, it goes, if I want to buy these shoes, it's going to cost me this amount of money. What do I have to exchange? What does my job require that I exchange in order to do it well? And I have to exchange those things. I have to give myself those things in order to give the audience what they need. Or sacrifice. The way I look at it is sacrifice. I have to suffer those things.
Right. And being healthy is laborious.
It's painful.
It's inner work.
It's painful, man. It's painful. Come hang out with me at the gym later today. I'm supposedly getting healthy, but I'm going to tell you in the moment, man, it's hard. I'm exhausted. I'm sore. And those are all signs that I have done the work. So yes, getting healthy is really hard. I love laborious because that speaks to the mental toughness, the slog. It's not hard to go eat cake every night.
Right. But also, it's also the answer of an athlete, which is that I have to work my ass off for game day.
For the shot. I got to work my butt off just for the chance to get in the game and make a play. All of this grit for one shot at glory. That's what I mean.
Some costs are not what we pay to get something. They're essentially externalities. And so somebody might say, well, a cost of me getting what I want from work, or just for instance, I want to leave a legacy, is I don't get to spend enough time with my family. Or another cost might be, well, this could be a cost for you, which is there's an emotional labor to opening yourself to other people's situations. And you need to hear people who are in distress. And that can be a cost. And do you pay it? It's not preparation and it's not health, but it is nonetheless something that you carry home at the end of the day.
Yeah, in my work, I'm fortunate that it's not that. So that's why you didn't get that answer. I'm not doing mental health stuff. And so I'm fortunate that my coaching is not traumatic stuff. Usually every once in a while we'll get something like that. My work is not heavy as it relates to the actual engagement. I also have always chosen my family. I don't send emails at night. I rarely work at night. If you were to interview all three of my kids right now, they go, I can't remember my dad doing much work at home. I love that. I gave you what I think the costs are. I have to do an enormous amount of preparation and reading, and I got to be ready. My publicist is sitting right here, and he's become a good friend, and I just think he would say to you that there is a cost, and I don't find it to be a bad cost. I actually enjoy it, which speaks to my whole methodology, But there's a reason why he could put me on national media 5 minutes from now. There's a reason that he can do that without any prep. Now, that's not normal. I'm creating an extreme example, but I'm telling you he could do it. And the reason he could do it is because I've paid my dues. I have invested enormous amount of hours, not just consuming relevant information to be able to serve the audience that I want to serve, but also thinking through what I believe and why I believe it. And so that's what I meant by there's a cost there. I have to be paying attention to what's going on because that's never going to happen. He's never going to call me and go, we're on 60 minutes in 5 minutes. But the real underlying thing, the point I'm trying to make there is it wouldn't matter because I'm grounded And I know what I believe and I know why I believe it. And you have to have that, in my opinion, to do the work that I'm doing. You cannot be knocked off a pedestal. There's no debate or anything about anything that I believe. Somebody could try to debate me, but I'm coming with data and I'm coming with real stories. And I think that that's what I mean there.
Where can people learn more about you and your most recent book?
KenColeman.com is the easy thing for everybody to remember as you're listening right now. It has all the connections to everything that you would need. And I'd love for you to follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Very active there.
And I want my listeners to know something really important, which is that Ken has a brand which is very much around career. You also consult with leaders, and you also have a lot of work that you do around what leadership is. I want to make sure that everybody is aware of that too.
Appreciate you. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Me too. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Work for Humans. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts. And share the show with one person you think would get value from it. Believe it or not, this really helps us grow the show and reach more people who want to build the kind of work that people really want. As always, thank you to my producer, Jason Ames at Ninth Path Audio, for his insights into content and his high standard for quality. Final note, the opinions shared here are my own and not the views of Google or Cisco Systems. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.